I'm going to look for the colors underneath my colors. Here it looks very blue. It's a gray, it's a fence. It's an old cedar, not a cedar fence, it's an old fence. So it's got some of the orangey brown colors coming through. Orangey yellow. And it's got these blues. You may sense eventually some greens as you start looking at things longer and longer and longer. You start seeing more and more colors glowing through, neutralized colors probably. So I'm just looking at these two things and I'm saying, maybe I'll just do it right on this, but maybe if you want to practice first, you'll do a little shape. You'll draw a shape on your paper. Just draw a bird shape so that you can paint around it. Let me just think here. So I'm drawing this bird shape and I'm going to try to just paint around that. So just for your practice. So it's a bit strange because we've got these interesting pieces of light colored wisps of branches kind of coming out here and there. How do we paint around those? And do we need to paint around them? So this is something you're going to have to decide. Do we need to paint around things? So I'm kind of just doing a drawing here of something I might decide to paint around. Just some shapes I'm going to practice on. Let me see. So we've got all this. So this is sort of foreground stuff. It's blurry, but it's foreground stuff. Okay. Maybe I will just do it on here and then we'll do it together on the good piece of paper. Put this over here, this over here. And well, we mixed our colors before. This is my palette from last week. So we're using our Hansa yellow, our violet red, and our ultramarine blue. So I want to make a color that's sort of, I'm just dabbing into this color here. And I'm thinking, I want it to be a little bluier. I'm going to put it up here for us here. I'm going to scoop out some water and just, I didn't clean my brush, I just scooped some water up. So it's going to be a neutralized blue. I skipped a bit for someone who missed last week. We did the color mixing with these three colors. So I want it to be super light. All I want to do is give myself a base. So I think I'm going to go, blue. What will I do? I also want to have some of this sort of yellowier stuff on hand. Let me just make some yellowier over here. It's going to be, so I want it to be orangey yellow. So I want it to be neutralized still. So I can just take some of this red and yellow. It's all neutralized. So I don't care that they're mixed together, but I want it to be more orangey yellow. That color there suits me fine. I can see it. I can see it in here, right here. Sort of yellowy bit. Since my brush is so wet, I'm going to use two brushes here. I'm going to use one for my blue and one for my orange yellow. So I'm just getting this all in here. You can, maybe I need to make more. So I'm going to make more. I want to have enough for you to do the whole thing. For me, I don't mind so much because I can very easily mix a similar color. I'm going to do it again here. Scoop up some water, didn't clean my brush. There I go. I have something. It's light, it's close enough, it's not perfect. And if you want to, you can do it, you could put it very watery on here and then pull it along. Or you could get yet another brush. And I'm just going to take a smaller brush here. And I'm going to wet this whole thing where I want it to go. I'm going to sort of wet into some of these softer things. I don't mind if it bleeds into that a bit. If it really matters that it doesn't bleed into it, you cannot wet past that line. So if you've got this nice line drawn, you want to paint right close up to it, nice and slowly and neatly. And if it matters that you don't go over this bit of leaf here, then you go around it carefully. And you'll take section by section. I'm just gonna, wherever it goes across, you don't, wherever it stops, it's okay, you can stop your paint, because we want, I don't want it to be too wet because I'm already gonna put some really wet stuff down. So now I've got this loaded up and I'm going to just kind of drizzle some colors into here. I know this is gonna dry a lot lighter. Pull it along. Actually, I'm just kind of gonna just use this whole thing back here like this. I don't want anything to dry, so I have to come back to it quickly. I don't want to dry, I have a hard edge. So if I haven't done it nice and neat enough around here, I've got to come back and get it nice and neat where I want it to be neat. Around anything, I want it to be nice and neat. While it's wet, you've got to do it. Nice and neat if you do want it neat. Now here, I don't want that to dry, that hard edge there. I want it, while it's wet, I've still got to pull that down. If that dries, I'm going to get a hard edge. I don't want a hard edge anywhere. So that's why I said do it sort of in sections where it's open, wherever your drawing is open. If you don't like something, I'm going to take this clean brush that I had. This is the clean brush that I had done the water with before. I'm going to start taking, I don't know why that funny line went like that. This is a cheap paper here, so maybe there was something weird about it. But yeah, there was something weird going on there because there's a straight line going across there like that. This is a cheap paper, so it gave me that funny unexpected line. I think it's too blobby water there, so I'm going to take my clean brush and I'm going to suck some of that water up there, suck some of it off. It's in it, and I'm going to, it's too blobby there, I'm going to suck some off there. Clean my brush off. So clean my brush off and then dry it. So here I shouldn't have done that. I went on the other side of this. Before it dries, I've got to connect that. I've got to, because I don't want that to be a hard line. So I'm, every once in a while you do it and you got to fix it. So this is again a cheap paper. I'm not liking what's happening there. So I should have probably experimented on the paper you're going to use. That would be ideal. I'm going to come down here and go look at my drawing again and say, it's not drawn it perfectly. So we're just going to use what we have. And I can just take my brush. I didn't wet it, but I'm just going to pull that color down like that. So there's two ways there we did it. We wet it first. And then in this one we didn't. We just used what was on our brush and we went down and wet it. So I can also use different, I can say, oh, over here, like actually I only use the one color and I think I'm just going to use the one color on this. I just feel like doing that. It doesn't have to be exactly the same color. And you know what? If you have to decide, do I want to wet this and then let it go like I did before? Whoops, this splashed. What was on there? Oh, this brush splashed. Got to be careful. It's got the brown on it, see? But that doesn't matter. I'm just going to use it. I'm not wetting it first here. And I don't mind that it's all sort of blobby. I don't even really mind that. I'm going to be able to correct this later with my paint. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to just do the same thing. So this is just my first layer. I can be more. So that's just a first coating. I don't try to make it perfect. While it's wet, I might take some of this yellowy paint, and I see some interesting yellow spots here and there. I could, while it's wet, just put some in and see what happens. While it's wet, so it just gives me this blurry. And I noticed that this fence, the line of the fence, is on a slight angle. It's not straight parallel up and down. So I'm sensing these are like shades of brown in the fence. I'm going to not get them on too strong of an angle, and this is drying quite a bit, so it's you have to be careful when it's drying. I'm going to connect this a bit so it feels like it's connected. Not exactly. It's pretty abstract in my drawing, but I'm following the thought process down. I see that this is dried too much because I didn't wet it that much. So I'm taking my clean brush. I cleaned it off, made sure it was clean. I dried it because I don't want to put any more water on it. And I'm just going to soften this line because it's a bit of a hard line here. This one was, actually there's a bit of a hard line there too. If I really want to get rid of it, I just kind of softly knit those two back and forth together so that it's not quite of a hard line. Just softly, and I can do it up here too. If I say, I wish it wasn't so hard, just dab it. Don't overwork it, and definitely don't put more water into it. You're just kind of softly knitting those two things together. If it's not too dry, I'm not sure, and I guess the more you work in wet on wet, you get to know when it's too dry. But I see another line going this way. You see that behind the fence. It's on the same kind of angle. So I'm going to try to get that in there while it's a bit wet. I'm going to clean this brush again, and I'm going to knit that again together. Just knit, knit, knit. I'm not trying to put more water. If I put more water on this, I'm going to start getting blooms. It won't really matter. You see, this is what I mean, that bulge there. That I did not make that. That's the paper absorbing in a strange way, just like it's absorbing there. So anyway, that kind of gives you your first layer of how you can play with your background. These funny shapes are happening because of the paper, not because of my painting. I always recommend good paper. But this I think I bought just to do color charts on. It was just a color chart thing. So I don't want to waste my money on good paper for that. But that's a good start. And then you have to let it dry. So while you're letting it dry, you can't really paint anything else, or else it'll bleed into it. So I think it's nice just to get something down. And then as we want to, we can add more trinkets to it. We don't have to get it finished first. But I think it's a nice thing to get something started. So what do you think about that? I think I'm going to stop the video and we'll talk about it.